You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
This episode of Mission Log is brought to you by Trade Coffee. For our listeners right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/missionlog. To get started, take their quiz at drinktrade.com/missionlog and start your journey to the perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/missionlog for $20 off your first 3 bags.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 436, What You Leave Behind.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. And this isn't just another episode of Mission Log. In fact, it's a pretty important episode as we have reached the very end of Deep Space Nine with the series finale, What You Leave Behind.
So, as we prepare to leave DS9 behind, we want to let all of you know what we're up to. This episode of the podcast will attempt to focus on the story told in the finale. We'll mine it for discussion points and morals, meanings, messages, the old Mission Log way that we do. And then we will break things up a little bit.
Yeah, John, you're right. Soon we'll be bringing you some special episodes to send off DS9 in style, interviews, and retrospectives of the series as a whole, so stay tuned.
And, by the way, very importantly, then we will take a little break because podcaster prerogative. That's what we get to do. And then we will be back to kick off Voyager.
But for this week, for this episode, and yes, we may run a little long for this two-parter, it's the one where we wrap up the war and everyone says goodbye, unless they got flamed out before they had the opportunity. John will be right back with trivia. But first, here's how you can reach us. Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek, and that's why we want to hear from you. Use Mission Log Pod to give us a like and a share on Facebook and Twitter. Then follow and rate us at Apple Podcasts to help others find the show. You can call us on Skype at Mission Log Pod or by dialing 323-522-5641. Send us an email at missionlog@roddenberry.com. And remember, we may use your comments on Mission Log or Engage on the Roddenberry YouTube channel. And now, maybe for the last time, John Champion will open the book of the Pa Wraiths and read aloud the incantations to heat everyone up with this week's trivia.
Wow, that is quite the tall order. And I tell you what, keeping our audience and the Pa Wraiths and prophets in mind, I'll keep it kind of lean because this is a big show. But let's hit some of the highlights, shall we? So, the episode was written by Ira Steven Behr and Hans Beimler. No surprise there. Ira and Hans contributed so much and shaped many of these stories in the run-up to the finale. By design, they had made this story a true series end and a wrap-up to all the loose plot and character threads that we've gotten through the series run. It's worth pointing out, though, that on the final day of shooting, Ira was the very last person to leave the set. He stuck around even after the technical crew struck their equipment. Now, of course, everyone who was a regular writer had a hand in this, too, shaping the final 9 episodes in tandem. David Weddle and Bradley Thompson even picked the montage clips. This was directed by Alan Croker, and here we see Alan's talent and reputation forming for the guy who finishes Star Trek. No, not in the negative sense, of course. He's someone who has directed a lot of Trek, but in particular, season and series finale. We'll come back to that again, believe me. And you might imagine that this episode was one that had a grueling schedule, and you would be right. There wasn't a break between regular episodes and this double-length finale. Pieces of it were in process all along, but the effects work alone required all hands on deck, working long hours, and even through Dan Curry's vacation time. So, sorry, Dan, hope you made that up on the back end. Now, one of the best and honestly best known pieces of trivia about this episode is the scene in Vic Fontaine's club toward the end of the show. The cast and crew got to treat this like a curtain call. And you have the main cast in there in character, and then it is so worth freeze-framing throughout, because you will see a lot of your favorite recurring actors in the crowd looking human. There's J.G. Hertzler, Jeffrey Combs, Casey Biggs, Cecily Adams, and also looking quite human are many of the writing and production team. There's Ira and Hans, David Weddle, Renee Echevarria, Ronald D. Moore, Lolita Faggio, and many more. This was the last set used on the final day of shooting for the series. The large group were in earlier, and then the very last scene filmed was from earlier in the episode, the conversation between Vic and Quark as they play Go Fish. Oh, and call back to an earlier episode. One rejected idea, having Benny Russell on set after the close of filming of his sci-fi series Deep Space Nine. But then that could possibly negate the rest of Star Trek, so they decided against it. Finally, guest stars. Well, there's too many to mention here, and fortunately, you've seen them all. They got the majority of the recurring characters back in the episode. Let's see how it pans out for them.
Are you ready for this? I'm not ready for this. One last tale from Deep Space Nine.
Prologue. It's early morning on DS9, and Dr. Bashir is waking up to, oh hey, Ezri Dax in the doctor's bed. They're considerably more comfortable and intimate with each other than they were a few weeks ago. Now they face the reality of danger, going off to battle on the same ship. In the O'Brien's quarters, Miles is saying goodbye to his family, and he assures them that they're all moving back to Earth so he can take a teaching position after the war. A little detail he hasn't told his best friend yet. Elsewhere, Benjamin Sisko is attending to Cassidy's pregnancy discomfort and her worry that he'll stay safe on this dangerous mission. Odo and Worf are on their way to the Defiant too, and the fleet sets a course for the Cardassian system. Act 1. Anticipating that invasion are Weyoun and the Breen Thought Pran and the female changeling. She's just anxious enough to be promising all kinds of things like Earth itself to the Breen as long as they win this one for the Dominion. Legate Broca enters with the news that Damar is alive, and that turns everyone's attention to catching the traitor, who just happens to be creeping around with Garak when they get caught by some Jem'Hadar, only to be saved by Kira, who is lurking about disguised as a Breen soldier. Damar and Garak were at a resistance meeting, and things are looking good. They've got a huge number of Cardassians committed to cutting off vital services like supplies and communications at the same time tomorrow to prevent the Dominion from resupplying as the Federation alliance attacks. On the Defiant, there's some personal chatter and joking as they get ever closer with the fleet to their target. Chief O'Brien shies away from telling Bashir about his post-war plans. Suddenly, Sisko is whisked away by a vision from the prophet of his mother, Sarah, and she's super helpful, letting him know that his journey's end lies not before him, but behind him, so that's useful. On Bajor, Dukat is miraculously healed from his blindness by the Pa race, and he asks to get back into Kai Wynn's good graces. She's like, yeah, nah. But she could use his help when she goes to the fire caves to release the Pa race. He's into that, but he also says he personally wants to take care of Sisko. Act 2. Quark has been spending his time in the holosuite with Vic Fontaine. He's feeling lonely, perhaps, that everyone he knows is off risking their lives, and he leads the lonely life of a bartender. Vic understands, but he's got a date and can't stick around all night. Kai Wynn and Dukat are working their way to the fire caves, and any small talk Dukat makes falls on deaf ears. Wynn is not about it, or him, anymore, and insists that he now call her Eminence, rather than the more familiar Adami. Checking in at Dominion HQ on Cardassia, the female changeling is giving orders to the Breen to fight alongside the Jem'Hadar when Weyoun notices their line of defense looks a little thin. Before he can give the order to tighten up, though, power and communications go dark. Broca breaks the news that it was sabotage inspired by Damar's rebellion, and since it has been carried out by ordinary Cardassian citizens, they all agree, okay, Broca under duress, that ordinary Cardassian citizens are the ones who should be punished. Act 3. Damar, Kira, and Garak are still hiding in the cellar and watched after by Mila. When power is restored, they're able to watch a statement by Weyoun alerting all of Cardassia that an entire city has been destroyed in retaliation for the rebellion. If they want it to stop, then the Cardassians will need to fall in line with the Dominion. More attacks, more citizens will die. Hearing this, the three rebels decide they need to attack Dominion headquarters, but they'll need to force their way in. Damar's security protocols would no longer work. Somewhere along the way to battle, Sisko checks in with Admiral Ross and Chancellor Martok. Their attack is about to begin. Act 4. Lots of flying, lots of shooting, lots of ships being lost on both sides, but Nog is flying right, and the new Defiant is proving worthy. On the surface, the three rebels are working away in the cellar when the door chime rings. Mila goes up to check it out, but she returns as a corpse kicked down the stairs. The Jem'Hadar have arrived with a couple of Cardassian soldiers, and they drop a charge into the cellar to flush out Garak, Damar, and Kira. Back to the battle, and it's not looking great. The Federation-Romulan-Klingon alliance is taking heavy casualties, and in the middle of it all, O'Brien takes the opportunity to share with Bashir that he's moving back to Earth after the war, so, no more Alamo adventures. At a certain point, Admiral Ross takes his ships and the Klingons to try to punch a hole in the more weakly defended center of the line, while Sisko and a couple of attack wings fight off the Dominion's left flank. At Dominion HQ, they still don't have long-range communications, which is just making Weyoun grovel even more than usual. Then Broca enters with the good news that the rebel leaders have been captured, and the female changeling gives Weyoun the order for their immediate execution. Act 5. Lucky for Damar and his friends that one of those Cardassian soldiers is part of the rebellion and wipes out the Jem'Hadar before they can kill our heroes. Up in the air, just as the tide is turning against the Allied ships, a positive turn. The Cardassian ships switch sides in the middle of battle and start picking off other Dominion vessels. It's just about this time that long-range communications are reestablished, and everyone in Dominion HQ sees what's happening. The Changeling is not pleased. Broca thinks he can turn them around, but even Weyoun is having none of that. Broca is escorted away by a couple of Jem'Hadar just as the Changeling gives the order to call their ships closer to Cardassia to defend them. And while we're at it, exterminate all the Cardassians. As the Dominion fleet pulls in closer to Cardassia Prime, the Allied forces decide to follow and finish the war once and for all. If you were wondering what's in the Bajoran fire caves, then you're like Dukat in that respect. The answer is not much, until Kai Wynn starts reading from the Kostomogen and, glowing, swirling fire all over the place. Act 6. It's all fun and games as Kai Wynn lets her hair down, literally and figuratively, to bask in the warm glow of the Pa wraiths. She even plants a big smooch on Dukat. As the Allied fleet gets ever closer to Cardassia Prime, it's just as they, and you, expected. Lots and lots more Dominion ships waiting to defend the planet. Meanwhile, down below, Damar's rebellion are trying to get into HQ when they realize, quite to Kira and Garak's amusement, that they can't. Their explosives are insufficient. They've got no alternatives. What do? Go up to the door and knock? What they don't know is that the situation inside is getting more tense. The Breen commanders are itching to get into the fight and take their leave of Weyoun and the Changeling. Another catch, the virus is catching up to the female Changeling. She's dying. Outside, as the rebels conspire, they catch a lucky break as a door opens and Broca is let out, to be killed by his Jem'Hadar guards. It's the opening they need to rush in, weapons blazing, and take out the rest of the guards. They succeed, especially since Weyoun had dispatched a number of Jem'Hadar from there already to eradicate the Cardassian population. The rebels will get ever closer to the Founder, but not Damar, who is killed in the skirmish. His death encourages the others to fight on for Cardassia. So they do, and they make it into the inner chamber where Weyoun and the female changeling are the last alive. Wait, scratch that, not for long. Garak shoots Weyoun as soon as he makes a quip about Damar's untimely death. So now, it's just the changeling. Kira tries to reason with her, call off the Breen and the Jem'Hadar. This is over. But the changeling will do no such thing, arguing that her soldiers will fight to the last man, taking as many of the Federation down with them as they can, so that any victory will taste as bitter as defeat. Act 7. Oh, look at those crazy kids, Dukat and Kai Wynn. They're toasting the occasion, and Wynn poisons his drink. So yeah, she's been playing him because the Pa-Wraiths need a sacrifice. Kira gives a status update to Captain Sisko, at which point Odo volunteers to beam down and try to reason with the Founder. First, he tries to appeal to reason. It's over. She could save lives, and the Federation wouldn't allow retaliatory attacks on the Dominion. She won't hear it, though, and Odo pleads with her to just link with him, just one more time, because he can cure her. Garak is outraged, pulls his weapon, but Kira talks him out of firing. And so, the two link. The Founder is cured, and with that, she calls a ceasefire, and even volunteers to stand trial for what she's done. A slightly amazed Kira asks Odo about who will cure the rest of the changelings, and he says it's now his time to go back, to rejoin his people, to rejoin the Great Link. Act 8. Cardassia is in ruins. The victorious leaders, Sisko, Martok, and Ross, have gathered on the surface, and each has a cup of blood wine, 2309, the good stuff. While Martok is jubilant in victory, Sisko and Ross reflect on the price paid in lives, even their former enemies and the enemies of Bajor, the Cardassians. They pour out the drinks, leaving Martok to mutter in Klingon. More than 800 million Cardassians are dead, and Garak isn't unaware of the mixed feelings, the arrogant oppression his people committed, and many might feel this is their just deserts. Bashir is consoling, but it's hard for Garak to hear. They may, or may not, see each other for lunch again. These are uncertain times. On DS9, the end of the war is made official with the signature of the female changeling, and Admiral Ross speaks to the need to move forward in peace. As the changeling leaves, she tells Odo that what's next is up to him. And what's next means different things for different people. Worf is offered to become the Federation ambassador to Kronos. Odo will return to the Great Link, and Kira will take him there. As everyone has plans to go their separate ways, the Chief and Bashir will reconvene someday, maybe at the real Alamo. They all make their plans while sharing a drink at Vic Fontaine's. As he croons "The Way You Look Tonight," the crew enjoy the sentiment and possibly their last time together. Oh, but wait. Ever the one to ruin a party, even from afar, Kai Wynn continues to bask in the power of the Pa-Wraiths, who revive Dukat. The feeling that something is wrong makes its way to Captain Sisko, who hops a runabout right then to get himself to the fire caves. There he finds Dukat in his Cardassian look again, using the power of the Pa-Wraiths to taunt and torture his old nemesis. Seeing what's happening, Kai Wynn causes a distraction by showing the Costomojan to Sisko. But Dukat telekinetically snatches it away from her and then consumes her in flames until there is nothing left. Sensing the opportunity, Sisko rushes Dukat and the book, and they all plunge deeper into the fire caves, surrounded by flame. But Sisko is awakened elsewhere, in the Celestial Temple, by the vision of Sarah, saying that he has completed his trial and he won't be returning to DS9 now that he's among the prophets. Act 9. With Sisko missing, the crew do what they can, but all they have is an empty runabout. The worry for Cassidy Yates turns to relief, then sadness, when she is granted a vision by Ben himself. He informs her that he can't go home with her, that as emissary, he still has more to do, more to learn, and his life isn't linear. So he'll be back sometime, a year, Or yesterday? When she comes out of the vision, Cassidy tells Jake that she was talking to his father. Time to say goodbye. The chief's quarters are empty, save for a figure from his Alamo model, and when he spots it on the floor, a flood of memories come back. For the chief, for Julian, for Worf, for Ezri, for us, for everyone, and especially Jake, who remembers moving in all the way up to his father's plans for a house on Bajor. Odo and Kira head to a runabout, quietly, only to be spotted by Quark. Any attempt at a friendly, heartfelt goodbye is quickly rebuffed. Gruff Odo is having none of it, leaving Quark to slink back to his bar. But when Odo and Kira arrive at his homeworld, they share a tender, heartfelt moment. Odo even says he'll miss Quark. Then it's time. He morphs to his formal wear look because he knows Kira likes him that way. After a kiss, he rejoins the link, back to his liquid state, and the link seems to heal itself almost instantly. Sometime later on DS9, Lieutenant Nog delivers a report to the station commander, Colonel Kira. On her desk is Sisko's baseball, which she carries with her to oversee ops. Elsewhere, Ezri and Bashir plan dinner together and then a trip to the holosuite for another heroic but tragic battle, just not the Alamo. In his bar, Quark gets a visit from Kira. She's putting the kibosh on betting who will be the new Kai, or any betting for that matter. Then there's Jake, staring out a window as the wormhole opens up in space, and Colonel Kira stops to stare with him and put her hand on his shoulder. The end.
A double-sized effort for a double-sized episode, John. Well done. A lot to compact because there's a lot in a finale.
There's a lot, and by design. That's I'll spoil it right away to say that is what I like about this episode, designing a finale that is final. So yeah, a lot of time to put that together, but also a bit of time to edit it down. So let's hit some of the high points here. I gotta say, I mentioned it recently on the show. I really like Ezri and Bashir together. It works, and I do also like their newfound concern for each other because it's a minor thing, but it played as genuine character moments as we went along.
But it also did add a little bit of the emotional kind of red herring, like, let's make a pact that nothing happens to each other. So you're always kind of waiting. Is this the moment? Is this the moment?
Right.
Is this the moment? So, yeah,
Right.
it's kind of stereotypical, but it does work because you want them, to be there when the smoke clears at the end so they could make more smoke. You know what I'm saying?
All right, and look, I have to say that I know that we've made fun of the O'Briens. I apologize for anybody who's tired of it. But look, I so want a family that feels real in Star Trek, and this is our last glimpse of them together, but I'm sorry, this one just isn't it.
See, I like the and scene. Like, and don't forget to do this, and don't forget to do that.
Yeah.
But, I'm not saying that their relationship on Deep Space Nine was perfect or perfectly crafted, but I kind of like that. Maybe it's because it's the last time we'll see the O'Briens, maybe. I don't know.
It is.
Maybe.
It is. It felt like maybe too little too late for me.
Maybe.
But, but at least we are showing everybody. So I'll give them that.
So 24th century morning sickness is a thing, right? So, we've seen what medicine can do, for patients from the 24th or 23rd century. Bones gave that lady that was going through kidney dialysis in Star Trek IV basically kind of like a wafer, like a lollipop, and cured her dialysis. So I'm just wondering if you cure cancer, you cure hunger, you cure poverty, you cure the need for money, you can cure morning sickness, right?
And it's interesting. Cassidy doesn't like to take medicine unless it's absolutely necessary, which again, just like, look, don't put yourself through pain here. You're already taking the birth control, at least one half of the birth control equation there, which we talked a little bit about last week. So, just like make yourself comfortable, okay? Yeah. Look, I know that there is so much to unpack with the Dominion War, and particularly with the female changeling. There is something really strange in the growth or lack of growth, the regression maybe in the changeling. Is she really that short-sighted? What happens if the Breen, if the Dominion wins the war, and then you've got the Breen assuming that they get Earth. As she thought this whole thing through, and I love her line. She's just like, well, I promised the Breen anything if they'd win the war. So it is very short-sighted strategically, just like, I'm going to make whatever promises I can, just make them do whatever I want them to do. She seems a lot more of a mess right now. And yes, I know that is also the virus. Talking about the Jem'Hadar's morale, if the Breen fight alongside them, like, is this really her concern? Like, a lot of her dialogue is just very odd. And I see her now less as a warmongering mastermind and more of just like a confused person taking out personal issues here. It's so strange. It's amusing. Well, amusing isn't the right way. It's entertaining in a dark way. But I just find her very strange.
She's in straight panic mode right now. She knows that the walls are closing in, and she doesn't really know what to do. So whoever is going to promise her victory is the one that she's going to lean on.
Yeah. And I guess it just doesn't matter what you promise to Weyoun or any of the Vorta because, well, they're programmed to serve and take it on the chin.
Let's win first. We'll figure out the rest later, but we got to win first, right? Because losing isn't an option.
Right.
Speaking of losing, not an option. The fleet scene, leaving Deep Space Nine, the entire fleet, gorgeous, absolutely stunning.
Man.
I don't think we've seen anything really quite like these fleet scenes in any other series of Star Trek that I've seen so far. Not to this degree.
Yeah. I mean, this is really kind of like the apex of that kind of design and effects work. I mean, it's so good because as we've carried along with DS9, we've seen that transition from traditional model to CG, a little combination of the two, and yeah, so nicely done. In that fleet scene, Worf, he's got the humor back. But I am going to kill him. I mean, yes, thank you. This is the Worf that I like. Small doses, the one-liners, they're great. Yeah. I do appreciate the saga of the Alamo model. Like that's kind of a nice little running gag there. And I got to say, Quark's got some wisdom. The person giving the party never has any fun. He's too busy making sure everyone else is having fun. Nice little moment with him and Vic.
Yeah, I wish that this scene would have come earlier. Maybe in Dogs of War, maybe in Extreme Measures, just because we didn't get enough Vic, I think, towards the end, especially not in this 9 episode arc. So a little of these scenes got a long way as they just dropped that into like something earlier. I think would have been nice, but it was a good scene between those two. Great acting between those two.
I agree that there have been too many moments where either we don't have Vic at all in the last several episodes, or we have a big chunk that feels a little heavy. This would have been nice to have planted it earlier. Speaking of Vic, the call out to Jimmy Durante and Peter Lawford at the Sands. What I love about this holodeck simulation or holosuite simulation is that it is always so specific. That's just, I think that's what makes this one sing. Oh, and what a great little moment when we go back to Cardassia in the cellar. Mila talking about fine, handsome Damar. I just, we went just... Here's an actress doing so much with very little on the page. And even that moment that we mentioned last week about her saying, I have no interest in any of this stuff. But she's got an interest now.
Oh, sure.
And it's sweet. Yeah. It's nice.
And I like how Garrick and Damar are kind of like being like naughty schoolboys, just kind of flirting with Mila. Damar being the handsome one, Garrick being kind of like the shy and awkward one, but both really kind of vying for her attention in different ways. It's very subtle, very short, but very endearing, just to give a little bit more actual, character development in these characters. Yeah, really like it.
And they sold it with the physicality. They sold it with that, not just the lines, which I thought was really nice. And by the way, with that whole thing with Mila, very much a rookie mistake to go back into the room where Mila's corpse just dropped and then stare at the explosive. All three of them, Damar, Garrick, and Kira, know better.
Yeah, it's like that scene from a comedy that I saw, like, grenade! You're like, oh, let's all look at it.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right. Oh, and I do love, as we're closing out that act and the changeling gives Weyoun the order to Weyoun to have the traitors executed, he just turns, kind of not looking at the camera, not breaking the fourth wall, but he just turns with pleasure. And I thought, this is shades of Clytus.
Oh, yeah.
From Flash Gordon. That was his favorite line, and I am here for it.
Weyoun, what do you have for us today?
An obscure body in the Cardassian system, Your Majesty.
Perfect. I did punch the air a couple times when the Cardassians who invaded Mila's house turned on the Jem'Hadar because they're loyal to Damar. I think they had to hold up the ruse, like somebody had to die in order to sell, like, the betrayal. But those are those scenes where I'm like, yes, the rebellion's alive. It's so good.
Yeah. And look, we've had a couple of moments like that in the last several episodes where it's the unexpected who then does the shooting to get them out, but it's okay. I mean, this way, if any of them are earned, this one is definitely earned. Mm-hmm. Also, hey, Yoon going on the air to threaten the Cardassian rebellion. Love that moment. I mean, Jeffrey Combs' delivery is always great. Dude needs to step back from the camera. or the cameraman who is on the other side needs to pull back a little bit, because that was just a weird setup. Just the camera going right up the nose on that shot.
But his performance was so good. I think it's probably one of his best performances, because he's just so unapologetically uncaring, right? Mm-hmm. And he just drips with just this sinister attitude, like, and this is what's going to happen to you. You don't want that, do you? No, you don't. So don't do it. I'm like, yes, you're so good, dude. You're so good.
Well, let's say it's that insidious attitude of don't make us do this to you.
Yeah.
It's so makes your skin crawl.
You don't want your body to get into the way of our guns, do you?
Right. Now, look, I will say that moment outside of HQ, it is a funny pretext that the rebels have shown up at Dominion HQ and they can't get in, and that there would be a moment of levity among all the destruction. I do appreciate moments like that. The direction here didn't work for me, and I wonder if it's because I felt like it was too over the top. I'm wondering if you felt that way.
It got to the point where the laughs started to get a little forced, as opposed to really embracing the gallows humor of the moment, where they just you didn't feel desperation anymore. You felt kind of slapstick comedy. I think it just lingered a little too long on that scene.
Yeah, I think that's all it was, but it's such a minor quibble, I do love, with Weyoun and the Changeling, I can't help but wonder what's under that helmet. A braver man than you are. Man, coming with the sick burn.
Seriously.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. But speaking of burn, my man was guns blazing. Damar leading the charge into the compound from the back door. Like Butch and Sundance, right? I thought that even though we lost Damar in this particular scene, he went out, I think, the way that he wanted to go out, fighting for a better Cardassia. I thought it was amazing. Really just well done, well-earned moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Andrew Robinson, seeing Garrick at the end of the war, reflecting on all the Cardassians that were lost, the talented people, the musicians, the artists, the poets, the people that weren't soldiers. I think that was Garrick at probably one of his finest moments too. And I do think that this starts kind of like the chain of events of the goodbyes, because I think his was the first real goodbye to Bashir.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I do love that touch of signing the treaty with pen and paper, the ceasefire with the pen and paper. It's just, there was a lot of tradition in that scene, and it was nice to see. Not that really the pen and paper would matter in the future, because you have things like fingerprints, etc. But that was a nice moment. Mm-hmm. And as we're talking about people going their own separate ways, I love Worf and Martok's exchange. I'm not a diplomat, and I'm not a politician. That was just peak Worf and Martok, and I loved that. And look, I'm just so glad that we already said it, we got to spend more time in Vix, and this felt like it was a necessary time in Vix, which was very cool.
Yeah, the way you look tonight, I thought it was a great choice of song, a great performance, watching the cast kind of reflect on their real emotions, kind of breaking that fourth wall. If you really look behind the camera, behind the actors that are in the foreground to the background, you see a lot of just the reality of the people in that moment. And it was very sweet and very touching until later on Sisko basically says, whoops, gotta go.
Yeah,
and it kind of, for me, it kind of ruins a lot of the gravitas and the the moment, of that scene, the depth of that moment.
I think we'll definitely talk about that too, that as part of the whole character journey there. But look, there's one word that cracks me up, and that word is Minsk.
Minsk.
Because they killed it, they got it with the comedy rule of 3. 3 is the comedy rule, and especially because you don't even see Worf on the last one. This was perfect timing, perfectly executed. This is the best use of Worf.
Yeah. I love throwing in timestamping too, especially with, I think, scenes that are really, really interesting to see. So starting at timestamp 1 hour, 4 minutes, 21 seconds. This is when Vic is on stage singing. It's time to play Who's in the Background game. Because from that moment, you can see, say, at 1 minute and 1 minute 5:06, you can see Jeffrey Combs smoking a cigarette with Casey Biggs. In 1962 Couture, you can see them through the shoulders of Sid and Colm. Right, so and then you can see just a myriad of characters you've already or people behind the scenes. You already talked about that in trivia. I just loved seeing them in that moment, in being present as that kind of soft rap party that they were having.
Yeah, agreed. I have a little thing to mention here as far as people who are in the reality of the DS9 universe and at Bajor and have been around the prophets. It's my pro tip for you. Now, listen up, listen very carefully. The prophets live in the wormhole. No. You can go there. You can talk to them. You can even have a vision too. Quark had a vision. He interacted with the prophets. He knows how to do it. You can use an orb like you use a cell phone. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, I know. We should have learned this by now.
We should have, yeah.
Why take a runabout to Bajor? Why not just transport to the Fire Caves? I just don't understand.
Well, wait. Have they ever been able to beam to Bajor?
I don't know.
I think they've always taken a transport. Maybe there is some in-universe excuse for that. But
I know that the planet is surrounded by plot armor. That must be it.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. Yeah. I do have some mixed feelings about the montage. Might come back to that later. I've been just sort of stylistically struggling with a little bit, but it's not like I don't appreciate the sentiment there. So I don't know. Maybe if we come back to that in the wrap up, you'll straighten me out on that.
I think some of the choices were really good. I like the Alamo piece. I thought that was nice. The miniature chair broke me. Absolutely broke me. I was in tears at the end because of basically reflecting on Jake's and Ben's relationship throughout the course of the 7 years. I thought that was very powerful, and I like the way that was scored with the orchestral version of The Way You Look Tonight. It was a nice kind of just a nice way to tie in both of those scenes together, where you're just really reminiscing for like the last 20 minutes of this episode, right?
Yeah.
And Morn, he gets there at the end. Morn's there at the end. Morn's there as life goes on. The station still spins, or the planet still spins, but beneath it, life goes on. The world turns, and Morn is sitting there. A staple for people who need stability. Right?
It's a beautiful bit of continuity. I do love that. And look, you said that there was a moment that always crushed you, and that is Jake sitting there with the miniature. I got to come out and share mine in a show with many emotional beats. The thing that every single time gets me, and it's two, honestly, but they belong together, it's Kira offering to take Odo to his homeworld. It is not even just the moment when they get there, but I'll also admit that when they get there, his goodbye, you want to see me ugly cry every time? Put on that scene.
One problem with keeping a model of the Alamo in the chief's quarters, Chester the Cat has a very interesting take on historical reenactment.
We'll get right back to what you leave behind, but first, a word from this week's sponsor.
I have a question for you, John. It's important.
Okay, all right, lay it on me.
How do you take your coffee?
Okay. I am a French press guy, and I take my coffee black.
Interesting.
I want to taste the coffee. Yeah.
Interesting. Now,
what about you?
I mean, I like bold coffee. I like black coffee. I like bold black coffee. That may not be for everybody. Some people like a full-bodied roast. Some people like it light. We all have our preferences for coffee, and no matter what you love to drink, you, John, me, the listeners out there, Trade Coffee makes it easy to brew your best cup at home.
Okay, can I tell you something funny? Because I did the quiz at Trade Coffee to figure out my coffee match, and I love that they figure you out, and they want to know how you brew your coffee, how you take coffee, and I just filled it out like I do a French press, and I'm not an expert, but I drink my coffee black, and I just like what I like. Here's the response. You're fancy, huh?
You are fancy, John.
Yeah. So this is the elevated take on the classic drip blend. It's carefully curated, seasonally rotating, and of course, cultured. So thank you. Thank you for Trade Coffee for figuring me out. Yes.
Well, I mean, Trade sells the freshest, roasted, and ethically sourced beans from America's best independent roasters. They ship free to you as often as you like, whole or ground. Whether you're a coffee nerd or just want a better daily cup, kind of like yes and yes, Trade's real coffee experts taste test over 400 roasts and use technology to match you, just like John, to your ideal coffee based on your preferences and brewing method.
All right, so do what I did and do what Norman did because it's a lot of fun. Take the coffee quiz to get started. Now, Trade Coffee guarantees that you will love your first bag or they'll replace it for free. And by the way, I loved my first bag, and I can't wait for the second.
Same here.
Trade Coffee has been featured by the New York Times, by Wired, GQ, and has delivered over 5 million bags of coffee. And between the two of us, we'll bring that up to like 7 or 8 million easily. There's subscription, no hassle. You can skip shipments. You can change your frequency if you're going to need like a bag a week, maybe, if you're doing a podcast, or you can cancel at any time, but why would you?
Now, here's the important thing. For our listeners, right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/missionlog. To get started, like John did and like I did, you take their quiz at drinktrade.com/missionlog and start your journey to the perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/missionlog for $20 off your first 3 bags.
All right, Norman, you ready for this?
Let's do this.
There is so much. I mean, we were talking offline before about how we could just pick so much into any singular piece and do a whole show. But we got to start somewhere. And I want to start with Odo. Mm-hmm. Although we should probably end with Odo, but what the heck, it's our show. We'll do it the way we want. I wonder if you and I can spend a little time here speculating what was it exactly that convinced the female changeling? I mean, she's cured. She could have turned herself into a puff of smoke and gotten out of there. Mm-hmm. And I know that there is a strong appeal to have Odo rejoin the Link and cure all of them, which, well, she could do anyway at this point. Was the appeal to reason or Odo's concern for ending aggression a strong enough argument? I mean, so the changeling has gotten more and more vicious in the past months. And this, I love this moment because it was dramatic, but it was perfectly understated and had this nice bit of ambiguity around it. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you would think what would be in your changeling brain about this moment.
I think one, the female changeling has been separated from the Great Link for a long time, so she's been spending a lot of time in the company of the solids, the Wayun, the Jem'Hadar, the Dominion, the Breen. I think that there's a point in time where she didn't even realize it herself, that she didn't even understand like why she was fighting anymore. Mm. The war took on a life of its own. It was just about winning, but she didn't really have a greater understanding of the stakes. What happens if we do win? Because she did kind of capitulate to every possible way of winning the war. We'll promise the Breen whatever they want. We'll promise the Jem'Hadar whatever they want. We'll promise the Cardassians whatever they want, as long as they help us win. But you only do that when you don't really have an understanding of what you're winning anymore. you just want to win. So I think that at the end of the day, I think when she sees Odo, she says, this is a far better path, a far nobler path for we as a species to be able to live, or how to live. And I think that she's always trusted Odo in some way after linking with him, knowing that Odo may not be completely trusting of the solids, but he's also not completely fearful of any other way of existing. I think that's something that's appealing to her. She just didn't know how to get there. And I think seeing Odo survive and knowing what he knows about the morphogenic virus and how he's risked everything to get to this point and save the rest of the changelings, I think it proves to her that this is the way that we should be moving forward. I think that's why I think that's why she surrendered so completely.
See, and that's what's so interesting about it. It isn't just a matter of calling off the Breen and the Jem'Hadar. Which then you have to wonder, okay, what are they going to do now? Because, the Dominion has control over the Jem'Hadar, but they don't over the Breen necessarily. Right. So you have to wonder exactly what that relationship would be like going forward. But that's what's so interesting to me about that scene, is that it isn't just the strategic military change. It's something personal that's going on there as well, and it's something also about the preservation of the rest of the changelings. And there's also something along the way that Odo has picked up. I might be kind of jumping ahead here too much, but it's something that Odo has picked up in this sense of compassion and empathy and his ability to get along with other species that the changelings have been so far removed from, and for millennia have lived in this kind of heightened and afraid existence that makes them aggressive and defensive. So I think there are a lot of different ways to crack that nut, and a lot of different ways to think about what went on there. What was interesting is it wasn't just, I'll call them off. It was, I will call them off and I will surrender.
Right.
And I will face trial for what I've done.
After she linked with Odo.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a moment of understanding there that was something very different from just, all right, we'll call this off because strategically it's a bad move.
I'm wondering, if Odo being one of the 100 and being one of the 100 that they know survived and has grown over a period of time, to be able to come back with that information to the Great Link, I wonder if those 100 are held in a higher regard than, say, the rest of the changelings in the Great Link.
Could be.
So Odo is somewhat like a prince, right? He's an elite entity of the Great Link, of the changelings, because she looks at him right at the end of the surrender. She doesn't say anything to anyone. She walks right up to Odo and says, "It's up to you now, Odo."
Yeah,
he's the future. Yeah. She puts all of the future of the changelings, for better or worse, because she doesn't know how it's going to play out, into his hands, which kind of begs the question: why the finality of his farewell to his life on Deep Space Nine? I don't really understand why that has to be so exact, so permanent, because he could have been the ambassador to the changelings on Deep Space Nine. He could have stayed there. He could have risen to a different position, much like Worf has become the ambassador of Kronos, and then the chief is going to be the chief engineer on Starfleet Academy. Mm-hmm. Odo could have lived this really robust and complex life on the station, or between the station, through the wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, and even to the Federation, because he knows that the Federation kind of screwed his people over big time.
Yeah.
So why just say goodbye and cut all ties? Why risk this wonderful relationship, this heartbreaking, tearful goodbye with Kira, when you don't really have to? When he returned to the Great Link, he already started curing them. The link in and of itself, it's instantaneous information exchange. So basically, they all knew what he knew. So why do you have to stay there and teach them anything when the link is the way that you can parse out this information almost at the speed of existence? So why final goodbye? I don't get that.
Interesting. Yeah. I would like to think that there is, whether it's in your headcanon or a novel or whatever, that Odo does come back, because it seems like his job there. I mean, look, the link was healing as soon as he got in. Mm-hmm. So That was great. But maybe there's just more to it. Or maybe he's never experienced the link, and it is such a good and necessary place for changelings that he just has to be there. Maybe he has to be there as long as he has not been in there to really feel like he is living a complete life. I don't know. Let's check back in on him one day, shall we?
Okay.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about our man, Damar. Damar.
Heck yeah, sorry. Heck yeah.
Oh, you can give him a hell yeah. I think
hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Damar died like he should. I don't want to see Damar die, but he died like he should in this scene. I thought it was great. It was heroic. He did so much. He accomplished so much in this short time that we've gotten to know him. And now I have some real worries about the next phase of the Cardassian political system. Mm-hmm. Not every Cardassian was thinking the same way that Damar was. Damar, and that's something that I talked about on our podcast many weeks, was, has he arrived at good decisions for good reasons? Because that's how you get other people to arrive at good decisions, is by good reasoning. And I keep thinking, like, even the Cardassians who fought back against the Dominion aren't necessarily ideal candidates to be leaders in the next phase of Cardassia. Who takes over in the power vacuum now? And how easy is it to revert back to the old ways? I feel like there are a lot of Cardassians who may feel like the founders did, which is, wow, we've really been beat up by this. Our next best response is to arm ourselves to the teeth so it never happens again. I have a real sense of worry about what becomes of their world.
I think that's why Garrick's final scene was so important. The way he described how he lamented the loss of life, the loss of non-militant, non-combatant Cardassians that were caught in the crossfire, that were bombed out of existence to the tune of 800 million lives by the Dominion. I think that Garrick understands what Damar was fighting for. Remember, Garrick was always on Damar's side. They were both fighting for a better Cardassia. Damar just had more of the charisma and more of the presence in Cardassian society because he started the rebellion, in the minds of the people. But I do think that Garrick, in some way, much like Odo in some way, is the successor to that heritage, to Damar's plan. He knows what Damar is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. He was trained by Damar. He was trained by Kira to be a rebellion fighter, to be a resistance fighter. And I think that what he said and how he said it to Bashir, I think that he believes that he has to be the one to try and pull what's left of Cardassian society together. And I think that he's the one capable of doing it because he is so well-versed in being able to play all different sides of the equation against each other to get what needs to be done. So it may not be the Cardassia that he wanted to return to, but I do think that he saw something in Damar that's worth fighting for, and I think he wants to be the one to continue that struggle. It remains to be seen whether that's going to work or not, but I do think that because they spent so much time with him telling Bashir what he believes needs to be done, I think that Garrick is the candidate to basically carry the proverbial torch for a better Cardassia.
I mean, look, it's going to be a tough road ahead because I feel like as much as Garrick has absorbed those good ideals, there are a lot of other Cardassians who have been raised with this sense of purpose in conquering everything around them. And this militaristic philosophy that permeates everything. Mm-hmm. So, as much as I want to check on Odo, I want to check on Cardassia, and I want to check on Garrick down the road.
Who better to plant misinformation and to make enemies disappear than a former operative of the Obsidian Order?
Oof, yeah.
They are like any type of rogue agency or black ops agency that's there to create counterinsurgency against governments. So he has the training to be able to do that.
But we've seen this on Earth and in our not too recent history that when there is a power vacuum after maybe a very good leader is out of the picture, then leaders who are maybe not acting in the best interest of that country come along and they can seize that opportunity and use the old ways to make things happen.
Just watch your back, Garrick.
Yeah.
Watch your back.
All right, let's talk about the man of the hour here, Sisko. Is Sisko dead?
That's a tough question.
Isn't it, though? Somebody brought that up to me the other day, talking about, we were just like, oh, yeah, I'm getting to the end of DS9 here. Just goes, is Sisko dead? I'm like,
do I take the existential, easy answer out and say, what is death, aside from the physical death of a corporeal body? Because he's incorporeal. He's a being of energy and light. He's a prophet. Was he always a prophet? Was he just stuck in a physical vessel to be able to fulfill his destiny?
Interesting. All right. We're going to leave that open to our listeners as well, because I think about it and I think about, all right, Sarah died. Sarah was possessed by this prophet entity, but then when Ben was back home and kind of untangling that mystery, we find out that she died. And physically in the same way, Ben falling into the fire cave with Dukat presumably killed their bodies, killed them both. Now, you could do a little bit of prophet hand-waving and say, okay, this incorporeal part of him that exists in the wormhole in the Celestial Temple, could it jump back into a body at a certain point? But all of those are points at which the physical Ben Sisko already existed. So I don't know, unless that incorporeal part is doing what Sarah Prophet did and just taking up residence in another body as it chooses at some point in the future.
I mean, I hate to say it this way and to pull like wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey physics into the equation, but what Sisko said to Cassidy at the end, which I do have a fairly serious issue with, he said that it could be in the future, it could be in the past, it could be yesterday, I could return. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because the Bajoran prophets, they live outside of time. So it's basically whatever Cassidy's understanding of linear existence is, that's where Benjamin's going to be. That's what he's basically saying. Like, whether it's in the future or whether it's yesterday, just kind of, he pulls it like a Gandalf the White kind of thing. Expect me when you see me, right?
Right. Well, I've got an issue with all of this too, and I'm going to take my issue out on the prophets. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it out on Ben, but I've had it up to here with the prophets, and here's why. Because the whole time that we have had the prophets and their influence over what people, especially Sisko, do, it's held up as of paramount importance. Like, everything depends on that. Ben asks Prophet Sarah if the battle he's going into is his path, and he just gets a cryptic answer about what lies in the past. So that's really not of help anyway. So in reality, what was that? What was this important thing? Because as far as the battle goes, Sisko just had to do a really good job as part of a huge fleet and not die in battle. Okay, done. He's a great captain anyway, so that part is assumed without any divine intervention. Everybody else did their jobs too, like Ross and Martok and presumably a bunch of other people that we didn't get to see in this episode. Okay, so then what? So then Ben Sisko needed to return to Bajor to toss Dukat into a fire, which honestly Kai Wynn probably could have done anyway.
Hey, John, he didn't start the fire. It was already burning when Bajor was turning. So.
Damn it, Norman. Right.
Sorry to take you off the rails, but...
It was fair. It was fair. Okay, but look, of all the other choices for Dukat, Kai Wynn probably could have killed him. We could have just left him as a blind beggar on the streets, which would have been cold. And I would have been... perfect. I would have been okay with that. So how much of any of this is Sisko doings anyway? And ultimately, his job is just to kill a Pah-wraith, which we already started doing back on the promenade ages ago. All right? That's it. It's just a means to an end for the needs of the prophets. And for all this concern in the end about Sisko's decisions, what does he get? He gets taken away from his own existence to live in the wormhole with other aliens who talk in riddles. He has a family. He has a wife. He has a child on the way. I mean, let's not forget that Jake already lost his mother. And at this point, the prophets are being selfish jerks. They haven't made their intentions with Sisko known, and now they've taken him away from the only life he's known. His journey here, I'm sorry, is not something to be celebrated. Norman, I'm going to bring up one of my favorite, I brought it up many times before, one of my favorite and your favorite scenes, which is in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Spock grabs Kirk's hand, and even though he is just melded with the greatest intelligence in the galaxy that any of them has ever encountered, he says, Jim, the simple feeling is beyond V'ger's comprehension. The prophets are V'ger here. They don't get it. And I am sitting here on the other side feeling heartbroken for Jake and for Cassidy and for that baby yet to come. This is the problem with the prophets, or any being that likes to show up and speak in riddles and manipulate the outcome to suit merely their own needs. They aren't worthy of worship by anyone in any form. Nothing makes me angrier than this. This exchange that he has with Sarah. You need to rest now. Oh, I intend to as soon as I return to DS9. That won't be necessary. You're with us now. Says who? It's outrageous. And I'm sorry, but that is the point where the episode absolutely lost steam for me and made me rethink everything that I thought about DS9 yet again.
I want to kind of double down on what you're saying, because you bring up a lot of good points, and I saw a lot of that in this episode. I also have a couple things I wanted to add here. So let's talk about this whole aspect of Sisko and the Path of Sorrow. This is what you've been bringing up, point and point with your observations here. So aside from the abrupt, oh yeah, we have to have Sisko end the showdown with Dukat because reasons, it also robs Kai Wynn of her moment, right? This moment has been building since Penumbra, 8 episodes ago from here. So all of a sudden, Sisko's dancing with Cassidy and says, I got to do something, and then beats the bad guy, which is Dukat, and then turns into a celestial being and leaves behind his newly pregnant wife and Jake. And Jake, who has already been with him for 7 seasons that we've seen with so much love and loss. And who's actually walking this path of sorrow? Sisko isn't. He's gone. No. He's turned into a being of light, and he doesn't have to answer for anything. Not the crimes that he committed during the course of his tenure on Deep Space Nine, nor the family that he has to take care of. All of that has been removed from his purview of responsibility. So he's turned into a tropish trapdoor, right? He's not walking a path of sorrow by any means. And here's the big question, and the one thing that I will take anyone to task on if you want to discuss this. Why wasn't Jake the last person that Sisko talked to before he left to be with the prophets? It's Jake, his son, right? He didn't even say goodbye to Jake or explain what was happening to him. Why? I don't understand why Jake was so excluded or absent from the entirety of this arc to complete the series, to the point where, now I don't know about the production issues, casting Sirach at this time or whatever, and only having him there sparingly, but this moment when Sisko's leaving, he didn't say goodbye to his son last. That to me was insulting.
Yeah.
As a viewer.
It's tragic. It turns this thing into a tragedy. And I'm not saying that we have to only have happy endings in Star Trek or certainly in this particular series or in this particular storyline. But there is something that is incredibly insulting specifically about putting all of this agency on the prophets and everybody just going with it. And I'm not opposed to the idea of the sacrifice. I think there is value in that, and there are a lot of. This episode has a high body count,
Oh yeah. I mean, let's not forget the 800,000 Cardassians that got wiped out by the Dominion because someone didn't want to negotiate for a cure for peace. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, there is that. Yeah, there is that. Yeah, but I feel like in the attempt to take some of the sting out of the loss of Sisko, it's even more insulting to have that play out where he is this incorporeal form in the wormhole with the prophets, and the people who need him are on the outside.
I'm sure the fire caves will become a totally harmless tourist attraction now. What could possibly go wrong?
So I don't want to say this lightly, and I want to say this with every ounce and iota of agency that this moment has brought us to, John. But we are at the very last, the very final, the end of the morals and meanings and messages and the wrap up, or the question, does the episode hold up? Oof. Not only for this episode, but for the series of Deep Space Nine. Now, I find it a momentous occasion because I have not done this with you before. Yeah. I have not celebrated the end of a series with you before. Yeah. So here we are.
Well, okay, first the good news. I do feel like it is a momentous episode of Star Trek. It is a momentous episode of Deep Space Nine. And just in terms of looking at how TV finales are done, they really went all out for this. So this is an excellent job of telling an epic story on a TV scale. You know, we point out there are great special effects in here in those battle scenes over Cardassia. I also love spending time with the characters after the war. Like that is a part of this that I feel like other series, other stories just don't quite get right. And something that DS9 has done so well over 7 seasons is let us get to know these characters and their relationships brilliantly so. So it felt like it was owed to us to spend a little more time with them after just the plot is out of the way. The Odo scenes gave me all the feels. Gotta say, like to me, that was the emotional heart of this episode. And, you know, an episode with many great emotional scenes. But there's that. I will say, okay, the montage, it felt like a proper goodbye for a series like this. But maybe I still don't love the technique. But I don't know what I would have done differently. So maybe this is something that won't quite sit right with me, even though this one was done really well. But again, that's just a stylistic thing. That's a preference, you know. So overall, looking at this, it is a proper ending. And yet, the thing that sticks in my craw, I feel like Benjamin Sisko isn't as important to all of this as I thought he would be. In fact, going back to the fire cave felt like an afterthought. And then it became anticlimactic. The only thing that we were missing was literally like shooting fireballs out of each other's hands. And all of that stuff, look, it's a magic book. You know, other people could have destroyed it. But the prophets messed with Sisko for a lifetime to get him to do that one simple thing. And that's what doesn't sit well with me here. Because it takes the human element out of all of this. And ultimately, to me, Star Trek is about humanity and exploring our human experience. But as soon as you introduce that and you make it the biggest plot point, I feel like it takes away from the gravity of what's going on. So that leads me to the prophets. And Ben's there. And so what? What should I take away about his journey and anyone's relationship to the prophets at this point? I will say, you know, that was a surprise to me. And I have to wonder if they really thought that through, what that implicates about Sisko's journey up until this point. And I do have to wonder if they really thought through that Odo was actually the linchpin to it all. To me, that is the greatest discovery of this episode, because I knew plot points going in, but not how they played out. And I was pleasantly surprised by that. So, look, in the end, it is a great episode. There are great moments. I feel like those great moments minimize who is ostensibly the most important character in all of this. What about you, Norman?
Well, as the finale of the season and the finale of the series, there's a lot that this episode needed to achieve in order to bring about a sensible and satisfying closure, for the fans. I think that at many levels, it was able to accomplish that. On one hand, there were some really great moments and some really satisfying earned moments that made this episode special for me as a series finale. The death of Damar, I felt, was earned. I'm disappointed that Casey Biggs wasn't there at the end in a triumphant hurrah, but he was kind of like the Moses character, right?
Yeah,
Moses sacrificed everything to get his people to the promised land, only to be told that he can't partake in his people's future. He was not allowed, into the promised land, but got everyone there. Mm-hmm. That's very much like Damar. I felt that the farewell at Vix was pitch perfect. I thought that entire, even though it was a little kind of self-serving and a wink and nod and a broken fourth wall to the audience, it was earned, it was deserved. It's what the audience should have been able to enjoy at that time, to access the love that they have for the actors and characters, or sometimes the actors and characters when they're not in character makeup or uniform. So as we saw with Casey and with Jeffrey, I thought that was absolutely perfect. It's kind of like graduation day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's just enjoying just being with each other. And if you look further behind the scenes in the background, they're just people that are just happy to be there with each other one last time. I also thought the blood wine scene on Cardassia was pitch perfect because at the end of the day, Admiral Ross and Captain Sisko are Starfleet and just can't savor the victory the way that Martok can, because they would feel guilty, I believe.
Yeah.
But then again, wouldn't they feel guilty about not negotiating with the Dominion before the bombing of 800,000 Cardassians? So
800 million.
That's just...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 800 million. 800,000, 800 million. Too many lives lost for not trying to negotiate with the Dominion when you had the Kira too. But that's another point altogether. Overall, I thought that What You Leave Behind was emotionally powerful as a final episode. I felt that there were a lot of earned moments in this. The montage scene where Jake looked at the miniature chair of what would have been his father's retirement home on Bajor crushed me, the way the visitor crushed me. Like you said, with the scenes with Odo and Kira saying to each other goodbye one last time, that was heartbreaking because it was earned heartbreak. I felt a sense of closure to the story and an overall sense of closure to the series. I just felt that for a series finale, it was fairly uneven at points. And even though that some of the stronger moments outpaced and outshone the weaker ones, but I still felt that, like you said, all of a sudden, hey, let's go deal with Dukat and Kai Wynn because...
Yeah.
So I thought the timing was a little bit strange on some of the pacing, but overall, I thought it was satisfying.
Yeah. All right. So, well, that brings us to try to pick apart some morals, meanings, messages, some lessons here that we can take away. And it's a little bit of a challenge here because this is all about ending the epic story and really just sort of sitting with the hearts of these characters one last time. So I don't know if I'm pulling too many individual morals, meanings, messages here, but, the goal of this episode is to place those characters where they belong. And this does a very nice job of that. But there are some ideas here to ruminate on, and some of them are spelled out pretty well for us. Victory can be as bitter as defeat. And that is something that overall DS9 has done an excellent job of showing the real costs of war in a way that other Star Trek hasn't, or frankly, a lot of science fiction hasn't. It's not just spaceships firing phasers. You needed a scene like that one with Martok and the blood wine. You needed the Founder to spell out her plan of destruction regardless who was winning. Like, these are the horrors. These are the terrible stakes at play here. And even this line, you mentioned it before, when Garrick says, we had a rich culture, our literature, music, art was second to none. That toll is sometimes impossible to be measured. And all these little moments really let us feel that instead of just seeing a statistic. Just saying, like, this many people died. Like, no. We get to feel it because these characters are feeling it, too. The other thing that I thought here, and this really does, in a way, land this episode and land DS9 telling a very human and very Star Trek story. When the female changeling says to Odo, "The Dominion has spent the past 2 years trying to destroy the Federation, and now you ask me to put our fate in their hands?" Well, yes. See also the Cardassians and Kira. See also the Romulan-Klingon Federation Alliance and the Cardassian Rebellion. If I took away one overarching message from this episode as it relates to the previous ones in this arc, it's about trust. It's about moving forward, even in the worst of circumstances, but it's about an earned trust. So by total contrast, you got Kai Wen and Dukat. They have a kind of faith that should not be confused with earned trust. See Kira's goodbye to Odo as the opposite of that. She does the painful thing, which is to let him go. Actually help him on his journey because she trusts his judgment. She loves him. And then there's Odo, who puts peace and understanding above everything. He's the emissary for his people. And he knows that his shared experience is the thing to get them to a point where they are more trusting, more accepting of the solids or anyone who's not like them. So maybe he can teach them compassion. And I thought that was beautiful and heartbreaking in all the right ways. And that's, to me, at the end of the day, so very Star Trek, so very human. And I thought it was a lovely way to wrap up this series. Regardless my very big problems with the prophets, but maybe you'll hit on that.
Well, I was struggling, honestly, with finding the morals and meanings and messages of this episode. So I felt that I needed to at least speak my piece one last time with one last opportunity here. Mm-hmm. Now, I do like what you're saying about trust was a very central theme, but trust also is based on belief, and belief is what is a bedrock of religion. And religion in Deep Space Nine is probably one of my biggest critiques overall in the story, how it is used or underused or underutilized. The prophets and the Pa Wraiths, I believe, were the weakest elements because the narrative thread for them lacked the one thing that religious stories need explicitly to work, and that's consistency. Mm-hmm. The real problem with this episode and with Deep Space Nine as a whole is the aspect of the prophets. In their entirety, from the emissary to now, they are, as a narrative whole, the weakest, most transparent trapdoor element in the show, and could easily be relegated to background story elements that appear on occasion for cultural interest, because that's exactly how they've been treated.
Yeah, like the cloud believers, so many years ago. Yeah,
just all of a sudden, we need to explain something. Mm-hmm. Here's how you explain it away.
Yeah.
So in the finale, they were utilized exactly as they were needed, as the trapdoor to let Sisko escape the past of his bad decisions and summary judgment of those that brought him to this point. Sisko becoming a celestial being answerable only to the prophets, or at least that's what I gather from his last bit of cryptic dialogue, is now again only answerable to a higher power, higher than man, higher than mortal law, certainly higher than the Federation, and all of the consequences that I wanted to see him answer for the crimes that he admitted to doing in the pale moonlight, or I should say in the pale moonlight. The questionable moral choices he made to toe the Starfleet line in this and many other episodes. I wanted him to face those decisions and answer for them, but he was given the easy way out. And yes, easy. Because not once in this final appearance with Cassidy did he ever say, "Please look after Jake." Or even worse, never appeared before Jake to say goodbye. To me, who holds the father-son relationship in the highest esteem, as I've said so on The Visitor.
Yeah.
This was an insult to their relationship. Jake should have been the one character that he said goodbye to, if anyone. Why that scene was never produced, even to only satisfy the fans who believed in their relationship, is beyond me. I also was really disappointed and outright angry that the nearly pitch-perfect story that they were building between Dukat and Kai Wynn was sidelined by the, oh wait, we need the emissary to be the hero.
Yeah.
Turning Kai Wynn's revenge into what she became, as useless as ashes blown away by those Pa-Wraith winds. This was just a terrible choice narratively. The real showdown should have been between the two religious figures who have been at odds this entire time, Sisko and Kai Wynn, the emissary and the emissary wannabe. Mm-hmm. Right? The chosen one and the slighted one. Mm-hmm. The one who didn't even know who the prophets were versus the one who has served them her entire life. This should have been the showdown. But instead, we were served up the standard pablum of clearly good guy versus clearly bad guy, white hat versus black hat. This was just clumsy, abrupt, and most of all, unearned in that moment. So sure, I'm putting on my writer's hat as I do from time to time.
Hey, look, if you're going to put on the writer's hat again, this is a perfect time to do it as we wrap up a whole series. So put it on, wear it with pride.
So can you imagine Kai Wynn disposing of Dukat in that most painful of brutal way as he did to Kai Wynn, as Sisko bears witness to her final form of Pa-Wraith powers, only for her to turn towards him with flames in her eyes saying, "My child."
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
That would have been epic. But this is the problem with writing fictitious religious systems. Either you commit to the world building and agency of the affected characters all the way, or you just don't do it, because the audience is far more intelligent about these things than you think. And the Deep Space Nine audience is a very intelligent audience.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the truth? Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is at missionlogpodcast.com. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog. And for more Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Join us soon for Mission Log's coverage of Star Trek Voyager with Episode 1, Caretaker.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Adam Brusky, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, John Mann, Mike Richards, and Mike Schabel. We never found out about Felix, but it's already time to talk about Neelix, closing the Mission Log on Deep Space Nine. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.